The bloodthirsty Mongol ruler Genghis Khan is known for a lot of reasons, like bloodshed and brutality. However, mercy is not one of those things. The brilliant strategist used his intelligence in a variety of ways that were 1,000 times more barbaric than Hitler and Stalin. While most people know the greatest conqueror for his vicious acts, they are not aware of the level of terror associated with his name. In this video, we will uncover all the strange facts about Genghis Khan and the insanely cold-blooded things he did during his reign. From a young age, he was all about brutality. Genghis Khan's family was basically living on their own when he was a child because they were in conflict with their tribe. His mother struggled just to ensure that everyone was fed while caring for 4 of her own children and 2 stepchildren. Genghis, who was originally known as Temujin, was taught from a young age that he must fight and kill for what he required to survive. Even though Genghis helped feed his family, he wasn't always happy with how food should be divided up, and he often got into fights with his half-brother, who was a young boy. They got into a heated argument about some court food one day, and Genghis took the matter to their mother. Young Genghis was enraged when his mother sided with his half-brother, and he fled in a cold rage. Genghis and his younger brother sneaked up on their half-brother and killed him with their bows, while he was doing nothing and had no idea what would happen. Although there were never any repercussions for their actions, their mother was shattered and infuriated when she found out. It is said that Genghis never felt any regret for the murder. It was justifiable in his eyes, and it was probably also the first taste of something that he would simply not be able to stop. Genghis slaughtered every man of a rival tribe who was taller than 3 feet. Genghis Khan went to meet his future wife, Brutality, when he was 9 years old. They were approached by a rival clan, the Tatars, who wanted to invite them to a peace meal while he was driving home with his father, Yasuge. On this day, Khan's father died of poisoning as a result of his previous offenses against the Tatars. Khan tried to establish himself as the legitimate leader when he learned of his father's death, but the people refused to acknowledge him or his family as the true clan leaders. Khan had mastered the skills and brutality required to exact revenge on his father by the time he was 20. He not only destroyed the Tatar army, but also ordered the immediate beheading of every Tatar male who was taller than a linchpin, 3 feet. As it was common for tribes to attack one another during this time, it has been hypothesized that Khan used this strategy to prevent any retaliatory attacks from other tribes. He reduced the likelihood of retaliation and ongoing conflict by eliminating all Tatar males. Genghis Khan poured molten silver into an enemy leader's ears and eyes. The tales of the legendary brutality of Genghis Khan and his heinous deeds are the subject of interest for many. The Khan demanding enemies to surrender and then completely destroying them, their families, and friends if they refused is the story that most of them tell. The Khan was proud of his murderous outbursts and thought that the fear they caused would help him win over more enemies without losing any men. Many people were unaware that the Khan could be even more cold-blooded and punitive than you could possibly imagine if you made him feel personally insulted during these terror campaigns. The Khan was in a very heated mood because an enormous city led by an honorable man named Inalchuk was in the way of his conquest. In the past, he had sent 500 men in a large caravan with the intention of expanding trade routes in the area. The entire caravan had been destroyed by Inalchuk, who completely rejected the Khan's peace offer. As a result, the Khan executed the hated leader by injecting molten silver into his eyes and ears, killing the entire civilian population and ultimately destroying the city. The Khan would clearly not tolerate the act of shooting his messenger, which is why this is one of the earliest instances of someone being brutally punished for this deed. He used to claim himself as the wrath of God. He came upon Samarkand when he was ruthlessly rampaging through the Khwarezmiya Empire. He was enraged and prepared to strike and eliminate anyone who stood in his way. He had just returned from killing Inalchuk with molten silver in the city of Otrar. In his fury, he also told the people that God had sent him to punish them. After that, he completely eradicated the entire population and destroyed the city. When Genghis Khan got to Samarkand, He faced a lot of resistance from more than 100,000 soldiers, but he eventually got past them by cutting off their water supply, beating them down slowly, and ultimately breaking into the city itself. According to some accounts, when Genghis Khan and his men destroyed the city, they found pregnant women and stabbed or removed any fetuses inside. This could be an exaggeration on the part of the story's writers, who may be attempting to portray the Khan as evil in order to either improve or harm his reputation. However, if it were true, it would not be surprising, given the overall brutality of the Mongols. According to some accounts, nearly 500,000 people were killed or compelled to exile, and when the Mongol invasion was over, there were no more than ruins. Khan made a pile of his victims' bones, which people mistook for a mountain. A city in modern-day Turkmenistan was referred to as the Queen of Cities from the 12th century until the massacre by the Mongols in 1221. With a population of more than 500,000, Merv was the largest city in the world. However, it is believed that more than 700,000 people were killed by Mongol forces. The Mongols arrived in Merv on February 25, 1221, to evaluate their options of invading for 6 days, but ultimately decided to attack. After the people of Merv surrendered, the Mongols promised them leniency, but they went on to completely pillage, raid, and slaughter the whole city. Genghis Khan ordered all captured troops to be brought before him for execution from his own golden throne. While the Mongols were looking for their wealth, rich people probably suffered the most from being abused and tormented. Genghis burnt Sultan Sanjar's tomb and then demolished the whole city. He then stacked the bodies of the people he had killed, and historians explain that eyewitnesses described mistaking that pile of bones for a mountain. The casualties caused by Khan outnumbered those caused by Stalin. Compared to other brutal historical figures, Genghis Khan is rarely remembered. Many people are unaware that the great Khan's fury left such a destructive path that he routinely demolished entire empires and huge populations. People have recently pointed out that Joseph Stalin was more vicious than the Nazis because he was responsible for around 20 million deaths. However, he is nothing compared to the cruelty of the Mongols led by the Khan. Genghis Khan was delighted to brag about his responsibility for the deaths of approximately 40 million people whenever he had the opportunity. He probably thought that making people aware of his heartlessness was an excellent way to keep them terrified and make them more likely to give in. However, despite the fact that the Khan was a cold-blooded assassin, he showed some leniency. He always gave his foes a chance to join his empire first, because he preferred to win by only using his influence. In some instances, he even sent multiple delegates before he went on a killing spree and slaughtered their civilians and everything else that was a part of their existence or culture. The Khan gave them a choice to either join him or die. He made the people and entire populations pay for defying his command with their lives. His army used captured adversaries as body shields in battle. Joseph Stalin is infamous in history for using captured enemy soldiers and his own country's sentenced prisoners as human shields during World War II. It was devilish and wicked, but it worked for the cruel dictator. He was able to use prisoners of all kinds, which would have been expensive to keep, as a way to win battles during a war that was very expensive. Even though this may appear to be one of the worst acts ever committed, human shields have been used in combat before. There have been numerous instances throughout history in which captives or populations that have been captured were compelled to fight on the front lines of wars. However, the Khan had already implemented and perfected the strategy long before many of them had even considered it. Khan was selective in choosing the person he would use as a human shield. He occasionally executed enemy soldiers who had surrendered in anticipation of favorable treatment. He might also allow them to join his army if they were skillful and had the right attitude. On the other hand, when he was in a mood, he would order his men to take many surrendered enemy soldiers and force them to fight at the front lines. Genghis made an enemy archer his top general. The Khan's brutal, continent-spanning rampage quickly became a legend, and his reputation started to follow him wherever he went. He was known as a warrior who fought with such ferocity and skill that he was almost unbeatable. One such tale has been told many different ways, but all of them involve a rival archer named Jeeb, who got the attention of Genghis Khan. The Mongols were battling against an adversary tribe when everything almost went horribly wrong. The Khan's horse was hit by an arrow, putting him in a perilous position. The rival clan, with the exception of the archer who had almost shot the Khan himself, fled in terror as the Mongols instantly changed the situation. He fearlessly rode into the camp and asked to address the Khan himself as he entered. He admitted that he shot the Khan's horse himself, and that if Khan wanted to, he would take his own life for it. However, if he were to spare him, Ji would serve him as a loyal warrior. According to some versions of the story, the arrow actually struck the Khan's armor, or even the Khan himself. Mongols during his reign could not shed the noble blood. Even though the Mongols were renowned for their brilliant combat strategies and their ability to kill numerous individuals without even attempting to do so, they also adhered to specific codes of honor during times of war and murder. The prohibition against spilling noble blood was one of these ancient rules. They took this very seriously and would not stab, slash, or kill a nobleman they had captured in a usual wartime manner. However, this does not mean the noble was spared a terrible and horrifying end. It would almost appear that the Mongols not only observed the law to the letter, but were openly ridiculing it by attempting to creatively punish their rivalries to the greatest extent possible. If a noble was fortunate, the Mongols who captured him would directly snap his neck, which would be quick, clean, and straightforward. That was, however, not a usual practice. Moreover, they preferred to suffocate nobles, which was significantly more painful and prolonged than a quick beheading. The capture of a massive Russian force that had surrendered to them was the most brutal one in this regard. Because the majority of them were nobles, they were unable to be executed in the usual manner. Instead, they took away the weapons of their helpless enemies, put their captives behind a wooden platform, and then stood on the platform and literally killed their enemies. The pain and horror of such death can't ever be imagined by us, but it unquestionably sounds like the most horrendous end. He made his daughters marry his allies' kings. The marriage of Genghis Khan's daughters to the kings of his allies was one of the most significant ways he took power. However, even marriage was punishable by death when Genghis Khan was behind it. The kings had to get rid of every other wife they had in order to marry one of Genghis Khan's daughters. This did not imply that he was committed to monogamy. It ensured that only his daughters would be eligible to ascend to the throne. The kings were then sent to the Mongolian army's front lines. His daughters took control of their kingdoms after nearly everyone was killed in battle. From the Yellow Sea in China to the Caspian Sea in Iran, Genghis Khan's daughters ruled by the time he died. He massacred 1.7 million people to get revenge for one person. Despite the fact that the marriages were strategic alliances, there was still love involved. A man by the name of Tokuchar was loved by one of Genghis Khan's daughters. Because he was Genghis Khan's favourite son-in-law, he had a soft spot for him. His wife demanded retribution after an archer from Nishapur killed Tokuchar. When Genghis Khan's troops came to Nishapur, they massacred everyone there. Some estimates put the death toll at 1,748,000. That number is controversial as other historians disagree with it, but his armies unquestionably killed everyone they encountered. People, including women, infants, children, and even dogs and cats were found and killed. After that, they were executed by beheading and stacking their skulls in pyramids, a request made by Genghis Khan's daughter to make sure that no one got away with just being wounded. Slaves who buried him were slaughtered. Genghis Khan wanted to be buried in a place where no one could find him when he died. A group of slaves accompanied by soldiers carried his body miles into the wilderness in accordance with his wishes. Slaves buried Genghis Khan in a location that no one would ever find. The warriors killed and buried the slaves to ensure they would never reveal the secret. After that, to conceal the location, the soldiers rode over it on horses and planted trees on top of it, in order to ensure that they would never speak. The warriors who had buried him were promptly slaughtered as they returned to the camp. Genghis Khan died in a massacre similar to those that characterized his entire life. The grave of the greatest conqueror is yet to be found, and we might never know where he is buried. If you're a history fanatic like us, like this video and subscribe to our channel.